Welcome to our feasting kitchen. We are so delighted to have Shiry with us today, and she is going to give us a broader understanding culturally of Shavuot, which is known in the English, it transliterates to the English as the Feast of Weeks. It's actually the fourth spring feast that God gave to the children of Israel. So what are you going to walk us through today?
So, as I said, Shavuot is celebrated in Israel mostly with a lot of fruits and vegetables, salads, cheesecakes, a lot of sweets, all dairy. So, but because it is a religious holiday, we do have challah as well made because it's almost like a Shabbat dinner. And the challah that I decided to make today actually is one that I really love, and it's with onions, so it's a little bit more savory, but it's just a different way of having it. So that would be one thing we're gonna make. And then feta cheese and watermelon. If you go to Israel and visit, you'd see, and it's probably one of the only countries in the world that you would see that on the menu as an item to order. And they would bring a quarter of a watermelon with a side of feta cheese and olive oil on it, and you see it on the beach and eat that. So I thought making a salad with feta cheese and watermelon would be a good representation of what we eat in Israel.
Wonderful. I had never heard of that mixture. It sounds wonderful.
It's fantastic,
though.
yes.
Yeah, very flavorful. So step us through the recipes.
Okay, so challah is a few-step process. So we've already put 1 tablespoon of yeast with 1 cup of warm water and a teaspoon of sugar, just to get the yeast activated. We've done that before we started the show. And so now we can start with mixing the rest of the ingredients. I'm gonna have the liquid ingredients first, which is 1/4 cup of oil. And then we have 1 egg. I'm gonna put 1/4 of sugar, because everything is better with sugar. And we are going to mix that.
Just till everything blends?
Just till everything blends.
And with a wooden spoon is best to do that?
I like that, and a lot of people use mixers for dough. A lot of people are very intimidated of dough.
They are?
Yes, it seems that people don't. I know my mom was always, especially with yeast, you know, do they rise well? What's happening? I like to use my hands. First of all, there is a very deep spiritual meaning for making a challah for the Jewish woman. It's a very important part of her day before Shabbat. That's the time that we pray to God. That's how we connect with God. It's a big mitzvah. So I like to do it with my hands and be in the process versus just throw it in the mixer for 2 minutes. But that's just me. So I'm going to add 1 cup. There's going to be 3.5 total cups of flour. But I would start with 1 cup, and always when you work with dough, you should probably just start with 1, mix it to let everything integrate better.
And this challah will feed how many people?
This is good for 2 loaves, usually smaller loaves, but I'm going to make this one, because it has the onion filling in it, I will make it as a pull-apart, which is our favorite too. First of all, it's very easy to make. You don't have to braid and worry about perfections of that braid, and it's just very yummy when you just pull apart. And
that's very different for challah then.
Yes, it is.
Not braided.
It is. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt.
And the onions that you add to the challah for Shavuot, is that the only time you make this kind of challah?
No, actually, it's not customary for Shavuot. I just chose that recipe because it's very savory and it's very yummy in addition to anything else you would have on the table. But
sort of counteracts all the sweet.
Yes, because there's a lot of sweet going on. Now I'm going to I'll add 2 more cups, and I'll start kneading the dough.
Okay.
And then we'll add the final half, just because sometimes it gets a little too dry and you don't want to have it all in there and then you're stuck with it. So once most of the flour is in, it's going to get a little bit, and it's a bit more of a liquidish dough at the beginning, and that's fine.
So, and you're going to knead it on this board, or?
Yeah, because it's a pull apart, we're not going to have to flatten the dough or any of that. It's kind of an easy way of making it, as I say, kind of a cheating way of doing this, but it makes everything a lot easier, and you'll see in a minute how. And again, you need to always feel, you see how the dough is still sticky. So as long as it's sticky, it still needs to be worked on, and you need more flour. So my dough is starting to be a lot more workable and not as sticky. But again, you do need to work it a while to get it to where you want it. So it's going to take a couple more minutes.
And I love that you said your kids are challah crazed.
Oh my goodness.
I love that expression.
It's
especially with the chocolate challah.
Well, I make this same pull apart, and I just put Nutella in it, and you'll see how.
Nutella?
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, it's impossible to stop eat, really. And the challah that I make with the Nutella, the challah itself has a bunch of honey and sugar in it already, a lot more than this recipe. So yes, it's definitely. Take a little bit more. And you see, I'm trying to get to the point that I'm not sticky, and I'm still not there yet, but I'm getting very close.
I'm going to be interested to see how you incorporate those sautéed onions.
Yes, now the recipe calls for them just to be inside the dough, but because I'm doing the pull apart, I'm putting the onions inside each bowl that I make, and once you pull that open and you have the onions in there. Okay, so as you can see now, my dough is very, very soft. It's flexible, and that's what you want your dough to be. It's not as sticky as it was initially. And we're gonna let that sit and rise for a while, probably 30, 40 minutes. My name is Shiry Sapir, and I was born in Tel Aviv, Israel. I grew up in the city, and I moved to the kibbutz when I was about 13. And stayed there until I finished my service in the army. The kibbutzes got established with the second Aliyah, which was in the early 1900s, real early, like 1904. And they started as little safe haven for the groups. They were building small fences around them, just trying to separate themselves from the Arabs that were there at the time and protect themselves. And they were really, Israel had a lot of swamps that they had to dry. There was a lot of work to do to make Israel the true milk and honey. Shavuot in the kibbutz is the holiday for the kibbutz. So they would, every section of the agriculture landscape in the kibbutz would bring their best product, whatever it might be, if it's from the dairy, the cows, the horses, where they grow the fish, where they grow the trees or the vegetables, wherever it might be, they would all bring, and there's kind of a parade that they would bring into the center stage area in the center of the kibbutz, and they're all going to bring with their tractors and the representatives of that department. The ladies will come dressed in really nice, beautiful dresses and carry big baskets that are decorated, filled with fruits and vegetables and flowers. And everybody would kind of come in, and the rest of the kibbutz is around looking and singing and dancing. So it's a very, and then of course, the feast, the food, the drinks, it's an all day pretty much, and it takes weeks to prepare for that day. It's a very big celebration. Meanwhile, we're going to make the salad. This is a very easy salad to make. Basically, we have cucumbers. I'm using Persian cucumbers, which are the smaller ones. In Israel, for instance, we don't even have the big ones that they have here in America. It's really interesting. And they're a little bit yummier, and they're smaller, and they look a little bit better when you serve. Some cherry tomatoes, Palmetto olives, watermelon, feta cheese. You can have mint or basil, depending on your taste buds. I like mint with watermelon, so I decided to add some of that, and some lemon juice, and of course salt at the very end. So I'm just going to use my hands, and I mean, this salad really, it's so simple that I'm putting it in a bowl here to mix. We're going to plate it, but it's almost ready to serve.
And the dressing is actually the lemon juice?
It's just the lemon juice and a little bit of salt. Not much because the feta cheese is so salty to begin with.
And was that straight feta? I thought I saw some herbs in it, or not?
No,
That's
it's just
plain?
straight feta.
Okay.
And when you do get a chance to buy feta cheese, I don't want to name stores necessarily, but you do want to look for feta cheese that comes from Israel because it's just so much better, and I can't explain why. It just is. So you might want to look for that. And most stores in the valley do sell them. You just need to look. So I'm going to add very little lemon, but that's just me. Again, I don't really like a lot of lemon in my food.
I can see the mint better than the basil. The basil
Yes,
you had mentioned before.
I feel that the mint is, and you can cut it in small ribbons, or if you don't think you want to eat too much of it, you can just decorate with it. It's very refreshing, especially it's already warm in Israel too. So by the time Shavuot rolls in, we're pretty much getting into summer. So it's a great little salad to enjoy. Yeah. So all Israelis, it's compulsory to attend the IDF, to join the IDF, and I was there in the bereavement office, which we worked with soldiers who passed with their families, trying to assist them in their financial needs, their emotional needs. We also negotiated the return of soldiers that were captured or the returns of the remainings of missing soldiers. I came to the United States over 20 years ago directly to Arizona. Arizona reminds me a lot of Israel, so it was very easy to acclimate, not only the weather, but there's something very similar in the landscape, in the flat landscape, in the desert landscape. Not the people necessarily, because Israelis are very hot-headed and very active and very passionate, and Arizona is very calm and relaxed, I feel. But there's something very spiritual about Arizona, and just as you would feel when you go to Israel, there's something about these two places that is very spiritual to me. I started cooking probably when I was a kid, again, with my grandmothers. It just was what they did. And us as grandchildren, we would spend Friday night with them, me and myself and my cousins. And so we would just be part of the preparation. There's nonstop preparation. I can't stress that enough. There's nonstop preparation of food in the Jewish household, especially of the older generation. I'm not so sure these days, but back then it's all we did. So you're part of it. You're part of cutting, you're part of seasoning, you're part of serving, you're part of cleaning, you're part of the whole process. So that started then. And as I grew up, I really took a liking to cooking and continue to do that. When I'm making challah, I'm really enjoying that moment. And I usually don't use a mixer. I'm using it with my hands and by my hands. And I try to get into that moment, talk to my God, check in with Him, because we don't do that often enough throughout the day, and just immerse in the process. I enjoy it very much. So the dough has risen. Again, since this is an easy pull-apart dough, what I would do is I'll put some onions right now into the dough, and then most of them are going to go in. So again, if you're not doing a pull-apart and you're just doing the braid, you might want to just put all your onions into the dough.
And then braid.
But since I'm doing the pull-apart and I want to have some onions inside, I'm going to just take about half of what I have. And this is made from about one large onion.
And what kind of an onion do you use?
Just white.
Okay.
And you saute it for a while on medium heat. Preferably don't let it burn, stir all the time. But it does need to take a while on the stove, so it's
Just
nice
as it
and
is,
delicious.
onions and oil.
Just olives and oil.
Okay, and translucent, basically,
Yes.
not caramelized.
No. Yeah, so right now I'm just trying to get the onions into the dough. But because the onions do have oil in them and moisture, your dough is going to end up a little bit more moisture, which is great. But it is a little bit more slippery when you work with it. And that's why I think that's probably how I've gotten to make this specific recipe with the pull-apart. It just seems to be the best
Yeah, I
option
don't know how
for
you
it.
could braid it.
You
Yeah.
could, it's just going to take a little bit more work. So,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as you can see that the onions are in it. But again, the flavor is so strong of the onions. And then once you have the onions inside, it's where you're going to get the big blast of flavor. So I'm not putting a lot more onions in it. I feel that everywhere I open it, I see enough of them.
Mm-hmm. And then you say you're going to cut it?
Yes,
each
I'm going to
piece?
cut
Okay.
to about 6 or 7 bowls.
And using a ceramic knife, that's the
Ceramic
best
knife.
for it.
I actually like to use a dough cutter, a gnocchi cutter, which is a square that's super sharp, but this does the job for us right now. And dough likes to contract, so I'm going to let it rest a little bit, and you're going to see it shrinking, and then I'm going to try to push on it again.
Okay.
As you can see, as soon as you flatten it, it's
Yeah.
starting to come back.
It's very evident.
That's what it's supposed to do, but we just need to stay on top of it. What you're trying to do is just really open them up, not too thin so they don't open in the baking process. And now you do have a bunch of liquid from sauteing, so you want to try to avoid that and just dry some of that with your spoon before you put the onions inside. And again, it's very tempting to put a lot more in there because it seems appropriate, but it's going to open your bowl, so you don't want to do that. You want to try to, and it's enough because the flavor is so strong. You will be just fine with just a little bit. Then you're just going to tuck everything at the bottom. So, and
So you start from the middle. Then.
yes, start in the middle and create a
Okay.
little flower.
So now when you get ready for Shavuot, Shabbat, do you go to different friends' homes? Do you
Yes.
rotate?
Yes.
Not always at your home.
No. And we do try, we're better than our parents at this, so we're trying to actually create some sort of a potluck so everybody's making a little bit, especially because we're all working. So it's very intense. It's a very big feast. Every Shabbat, it's incredible. I think there's no other day in the week that you feel, after just eating the appetizers, because there's so many different salads and hummus and eggplant salads and all kinds of different things, you're so full. 30 minutes into the dinner, the Shabbat dinner, I don't know what it is about it, but it's just the way it is. So, so there's a lot to make, and we're trying to share the labor.
God was so specific, as we were talking before, that about telling the Jewish people, go to the nations and tell them about the one true God.
Right.
Because that is the way God made. He revealed himself. When I think of Mount Sinai again, he revealed himself, and he's provided the way for us to get to him.
Well, it's either him or somebody really talented to create. Think about everything we have in this world, every detail of every animal. Who was making those sketches? There was no CAD. There was none of that. Who was doing all these drawings? Who was creating all these colors? It's perfect. It's perfection.
That's exactly it.
It's
He's God and we are not.
I don't think many people, as creative and fantastic as we are as humans, I don't think we could have created such a intricate and fantastic world. So I would like to give that to him. We have one extra, so we don't need to put that in.
And how long should it be in the oven for, Shiry?
So it should go for 25 to 30 minutes at 350 degrees.
Okay.
Saying it's not perfect to have a smaller roll than the bigger one. It's okay. They're all going to rise and be
Wonderful, right?
wonderful and yummy. And before you even think about how they look, they're going to be all eaten at the table, so you don't have a problem. So egg wash, 1 egg, nothing else in it. Just brush it generously.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much, so you don't have crisps of omelet
Oh.
in between the ridges. It happens when your children do that.
Oh, and then you make up a new recipe, right?
Oh my God, they just kind of pour it. They're like, no, when it comes out, it looks like an omelet. No. You can put sesame seeds or poppy seeds if you choose. With this one, the onion is so flavorful and so fantastic, and I just don't like to interrupt with anything else if I don't have to.
So you've mentioned, of course, this, but also Nutella and jam you use. Any other kinds of fillings?
I think that's all I do. I mean, you can saute some mushrooms and onions and put in it. I love mushrooms, so that could be great. But really, anything you like, you can put in a challah, and that's that.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to put this in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes at 350 degrees in our preheated oven. I do have 1 challah that was already pre-made. All right, so this is the finished product.
Beautiful.
It smells great.
Yes, it does.
And it is ready to go. Once it's on the table, you just rip it apart and enjoy it with any of tahini or hummus or whatever else you have, or just by itself.
Thank you, Shiry. Hag Sameach.
Chag sameach.
Thank you for watching.